Hi, welcome to this Grandma's Life podcast. I'm your host, theciaellis. Get ready to laugh, learn, and grow with me as we explore growing old in an ever changing world. One of the good things about growing old is that people judge you less when you sometimes say outrageous things. I'm getting older and I've had a fascinating life. I also have opinions. You may not agree with these opinions, and I may not care. Even now, I am passionate about many things. I love to learn. I love quotes. I love my animals on the farm, and I care about my country. Join me as we explore loving life, even as we age. Today is March 15, 2024. This is episode 55, and this one is called Are You Ready for the Next Great Depression? This is part of the series. This is the third in the series, and this one is about prepping. Today, we're going to talk about, as usual, the farm happenings, my three things, um, my quote of the day, and something about the author who had said it, and what I'm listening to, and then, of course, the main subject about preparing it for the next Great Depression. So, as you could tell, there's been some changes in this podcast. I'm still going to do. Are you ready for the next Great Depression in these series differently? Than the regular ones, but I am kind of combining them too. I will every time I do one in the series for the next Great Depression, I will tag it as such, and then I will have my regular things about it. I'm learning to some of the things I'm learning is that with you and I are talking and having a good time together, I'm full of stories. I can tell you all kinds of stuff. I was struggling to come up with a particular story for different things, and but there's a lot going on in the world too. So I decided that I'm going to change up, not just tell you stories and not just give you just farm life stuff, which will be part of it too, but I want to talk about how I feel about some of the things that are going on in the world, and I believe that they will be helpful to you as we explore them. Okay, let's get started with the farm happenings, spring weather and storms. Now we're not having any of the storms that they've been having, like in Kansas and east of here. In fact, it's kind of cool. I thought I was going to get some cool footage of a thunderstorm that was heading toward us a couple of nights ago, and I even put my camera out. But I don't have high quality cameras, and so all the only thing you could see was an occasional flicker of light instead of the beautiful storm that was approaching us. So I was not able to use anything with that footage. And we've gotten little to no rain from 2 or 3 rounds of thunderstorms that have been coming through. They just either, most of them have slid underneath us, and with a couple of smaller storms sliding to our north too as they're working northeast. So I don't even think we've gotten a tenth of an inch of rain out of all these storms that are all around us. But I enjoy watching them, especially at night with the thunder, lightning, and stuff. I have rabbits now. Well, okay, I have had a rabbit, and if you look on my Grandma's Homestead channel, you'll see that on my recent videos where I switched out Roger for three other rabbits. I've got two really beautiful. They're white New Zealanders, but there's some of, she says they're a mix. The lady I got them from, I really enjoyed this lady, but I got a lot to learn, obviously. But I got two female New Zealanders with a kind of beautiful little fluffy hair. They're not the short hairy thing, and then the my new buck is. It looks like a small version of Roger, and she says he's a New Zealander too, but he's gray. I found out that Roger was a Flemish giant, and he was so big, and he was getting even bigger, and he was getting bigger than with the cage that I had him in. So I have to admit he's going to a better home, and I'm glad because I was not going to be able to accommodate him with his ever growing size. So I've got a breeding trio now, and I'm going to start being able to put some meat in my freezer. And I'm honestly wanting to do some meat to feed to my dogs too. We do cheap dog food here, and I've noticed that my dogs get old faster with joint problems and stuff. And as a person who is technically, or I don't know if I'm technically a prepper, but as someone who's always trying to do things, maybe someday I won't be able to get dog food. So I wanted to be able to have rabbits on hand to feed to my animals, which is going to be better for them anyway. But it's also going to be able to, if not replace their dog food somewhere down the road, it can certainly supplement it. And that's my goal for having the rabbits. Got Waddles and most of her family moved. I put so Daisy. It is I've got Daisy and Wilbur, my original sows. Daisy is the one that had the catastrophic terrible farrowing last year. Waddles did a really good job. Well, all of her babies are all growing up and stuff, and one of them is Wilbur. So he's my new boar for Daisy. I really can't breed him with anybody else. And I'm hoping that I got him switched out in time. I got him, but I don't think I did. So there's a chance that I'm going to have some piglets somewhere down the road from Wilbur that are not going to be able to be registered and everything. But it's done. But Waddles and the family, her family, like the three of the girls and Yoda, have been moved, and they're loving their new paddock. I mean, is one thing they always love going to new paddock and new grass, but the new paddock has last summer's late growth. So there's tall dead stuff with luscious green stuff growing up underneath it. And they're literally, you can look out the window and you can actually see them skipping around. It's kind of funny. So I need to get Daisy and Wilbur moved too, but I haven't done that yet. We last weekend we got Waddle and the rest of them done. I have asparagus coming up. We got 4 or 5 stalks in a jar in the refrigerator, and then we went 2 or 3 days without any at all. But then I've noticed that I've got some more that's going to be ready to be harvested tomorrow. And we like asparagus around here. So those are the farm happenings for right now. My 3 things. I got a notification this morning. My desk that I'm on now, I really like it. It's all wood, and but it's falling apart. I can't close the drawers all the way, and if I do, I can't get another drawer open. So things are kind of falling apart on it, and so I got a notice this morning saying that one of the ladies in our church, her husband had died a week or so ago. She's cleaning some stuff out and wanted to know if we had wanted a desk, and I thought, sure, I'll take it. And so I went to go pick it up this morning. I don't know that I'm gonna be able to use it. It's kind of falling apart too, but it's one less thing for her to have to worry about. And so she's making room for a granddaughter to move in with her, and so that's kind of what's going on there. And even if I don't use the desk, it helped her, I believe, and that's good too. So I got at the desk. I did work on one of the we got we've got asparagus beds down in the vineyard, and then Tom planted asparagus in the middle of a field, I guess. So we marked them. We have them marked with tomato cages. So that's what I worked on this morning, was weeding the asparagus plots that are in the tomato cages, and then I scythed the tall grass around them. And so I got some of that done this morning. That was one of my 3 things. And of course, number 3 on my 3 things is this podcast, and that's what we're in the process of doing now. Took me long enough to get the notes done for it. I've been working on these notes for weeks, and I have to admit I apologize for that, because I enjoy doing research, and it took me longer than I had expected to do the research. But then I was trying to do the Amazon links for stuff for that, and I was able to create the Amazon links, but I was having trouble getting them to work when I was putting them on the website or on this or something. And it's still possible that they're not going to work, but you know what? I couldn't hold off any longer. And so there are Amazon links down in the show notes of this podcast and or this video. And we hope they work. If they don't, it is what it is. I worked as long as I was willing to do it, days to get them to work, and even ask for a little bit of help. So I don't know if they didn't work, I don't know what I did wrong, but I promise you, I don't hate money, but I would like to start earning a little bit of money to do some of this work that I do. But that is what has taken me so long, and I'm hoping that I can get my rhythm back going again, and get these podcasts out in a more timely manner. What I'm listening to, I just finished my second listening of Be Useful by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it was a good book. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot in it. Of course, he's got that strong accent. That's one of the things he had said in his book, was that all the different things he was taking dance lessons for one movie. He was doing, he just practices and took lessons. But one of the things he said is accent coach. He spent lots of money on coaches, and he really wish he could get his money back on that. And I'd be working, and I could get through most of the stuff he said with his accent, but I'm out there feeding the pigs one morning, and he's talking about an ambulance, and I got so tickled. So, and both times I listened to the book, I would get tickled when he's saying that he had to worry about ambulances. And I just finished my second listening of Dune Messiah by Frank Herbert. So I did the Arnold Schwarzenegger book and Frank Herbert book, but now I've started on the book called Who, Not How by Dan Sullivan and R. Benjamin Hardy, and then Children of Doom by Frank Herbert. So if you think about it, I don't know if you notice a pattern here. One morning I'll listen to a fiction book. The next morning I'll listen to a good for me, but I don't know what they're called, but they're good for me book in one form or another. So that's what it is. I had just finished the Be Useful. That was my good for me book, and I'm now listening to Who Not How, and that's my good for me book. And then Dune Messiah, and now I'm listening to Children of Dune. So I'm kind of working my way through the Dune series, and there are I have other fiction books that I've already loaded and everything. But once you get into a series, you go, oh yeah, I want to read the next book too, or listen to it. We say read when we listen to audiobooks, but these are audiobooks. I did not put in here what I'm actually reading anymore, for like with a real book, because that is on my other podcast that I'm doing, that I'm still trying to figure out how to get where it can be on iTunes and other Google things. But that is my other book, and my other podcast is Books Highlighted. I read the hardcover books or the paperbacks, whatever, and I highlight things. And then my other podcast is me reading highlighted portions of those books. So there's no reason to talk to you about those anymore. My quote of the day is, life is difficult, but once you face up to the fact that life is difficult, it doesn't seem so difficult anymore. And that was by Dr. Scott Peck. Let me repeat that one, because this is a quote that I try to put quotes that have a little bit of something to do with the subject that we're talking about. And we are talking about preparing for the next Great Depression. So life is difficult, but once you face up to the fact that life is difficult, it doesn't seem so difficult anymore. Dr. Scott Peck. He was born in 1936 in New York City to Quaker parents. He was raised a Protestant, though. And at 13, he was sent to a prestigious boarding school, but he hated it and ended up transferring to Friends Seminary. And if you think about Friends, is a Quaker thing. And then he graduated from there in 1954. He later earned an MBA. He learned a BA from Harvard and a doctorate in 1963 from another school. He achieved the rank of lieutenant colonel in the Army and was a chief of psychiatry in Japan. He was married with 3 children. He is best known for his book, The Road Less Traveled. Okay, now let's get back into our main subject, which is not too bad. We're 13 minutes into. Ooh, that's farther longer than I thought. Okay, so what I want you to know, this is a series. So in episode 48, I did the introduction. Are you ready for the next Great Depression? And I'm going to say this time, as I will say every time, these episodes in the series are not meant to scare you. They're not meant to cause you any angst whatsoever. I'm just saying, I'm seeing evidence of things changing and happening, and I am encouraging you to listen to these episodes and figure for yourself what you think is the best route for you to take for it. Okay, so let's go back to Jack Spirko that we talk about sometimes. His motto is helping you to live a better life if times get tough or even if they don't. So everything I'm telling you in these episodes is not to cause you any angst. It's to help you to live that better life. And if it doesn't get bad, you didn't lose anything out of it. So episode 48 is the introduction. And then episode 50 was, I was tackling the subject of how much do you really eat? People always talking about, you do beans, bullets, and Band-Aids, and you want to, and so how much beans do you want? Are you going to eat? How do you even know how to cook what you do, and all that other, what you have and what you think you're going to be doing? I'm saying that wrong, but you understand. So 48 was the introduction. Number 50 was how much do you really eat? And this one is, we're looking at preparing for the Next Great Depression, if it happens, in as a prepper's perspective. While I was researching, I found an interesting subject. I found an article by, he called himself Bunker Bob, and it's called The History of Prepping. And I'm sure that prepping has been a part of human history since the beginning of time. If you think about it, people who live, they know winter's coming and they prepare for winter. So that's just been that way is. But he has a different view, and it seemed valid. But how else would mankind have survived through harsh winters, severe weather, accidents, death in the family if there was not some sort of preparation involved? If you think about even just that, how we live now is so different. You know, when the weather starts getting cold for winter, many of us go, I'm going to have to scrape the car off in the morning when I warm it up, and that's the most they do for prepping. But if you think about it, there's more to it in a lot of ways. Well, okay, there can be. Let me put it that way. In our current society, that is all that you need to do. But if things get bad, you want to be able to learn to take care of yourself. Okay, so let me get back to Bunker Bob. He says, regardless, Bunker Bob has some interesting, more modern views of prepping. He believes the prepping movement was sparked by the Great Depression. So that was back in the 30s. Even in an era where many families did their own gardening and canning, the Dust Bowl devastated crops and greatly diminished available food. Those in the cities were also caught off guard. Prepping was a step in the right direction to help remedy the situation. He also said that the Cold War contributed to prepping. Some people were convinced there was a high probability of a thermonuclear attack. Those who had the means built underground bunkers, stocking them with food and water to tide them over until the air cleared of radiation. The rest of the population was taught to duck and cover under desks. Many buildings in the towns and cities were built of rock and labeled as bomb shelters in case of a nuclear attack. I know that in the town that I graduated high school in, there was, and I don't remember what the original building was. I think it was called the Armory. It was the Armory, but it was something even before that. But it was a huge rock building, and it was also our bomb shelter. And I've seen many bomb shelter buildings over the years as I was growing up when they were big rock buildings. In the 70s, during the oil crisis, skyrocketing interest rates and the recession, there was a back to the land movement that seemed to die out as life improved in the 80s. Then there was Y2K. People were convinced that the computers and other electronic equipment in the time would not be able to function after the clock struck midnight going into the year 2000. All forms of infrastructure would collapse. The electrical grid would go down. Hospitals would be unable to function. The world would be filled with dead or malfunctioning electronic equipment, and we would all be plunged directly into the dark ages. I know people who bought a full truckload of long term food to get them over the anticipated disaster. 24 years later, much of the food is still in their basement. And that last two sentences are from me, not from Bunker Bob. I'm old enough to remember mom and dad struggling to put food on the table in the 70s. There were a few bomb shelters in the school, or no, excuse me, there were a few bomb drills in our schools, but during that time I was living in Western Oklahoma, and we had far more tornado drills than we did nuclear attack drills. But I will say that Y2K began to open my eyes. I did not fall for the threat of being plunged into the dark ages when the clock struck midnight because there was nothing I could do about it anyway. But it did get me to consider the possible scenarios that I should prepare for. I began to train my family to tell me when they got into a backup of shampoo, coffee, cereal, etc. I felt there was nothing worse than to be in the middle of something and not be able to finish that task because I ran out of that product, ingredient, or whatever. Especially since I was a single mother most of my time, my boys were growing up, and it might take a few days until payday without shampoo. 9/11 brought home the fact that we were not immune to terrorism any more than anybody else in the world. My personal journey into prepping came when my husband succumbed to severe depression, and I watched the food diminish down to mystery meat in the very bottom of the freezer. That was when I knew that I had to take charge and make sure that we never ran out of food again. All right. And so, more in my research, preppers have different levels of for needs of like this one is 4 needs of survival, and some of this will pertain to what we're talking about for the next Great Depression. Some of it is not. Some of it is more of short term. This is how we get. This is we need this to get home from whatever or whatever. But it is still things that you need to consider as you're going into any situation. So the 4 needs of survival are water, shelter, fire, and food. And fire is like for either cooking food or for warmth or something like that. And preppers have determined that there are 4 major needs of the survival. There are other categories that can be added to these needs, but the major consensus is that water, shelter, fire, and food are the basic needs to live. Another survival outlook are the 3 basics. We can live about, oh, excuse me, let me rephrase that. Another survival outlook are the basic 3s. We can live about 3 minutes without air. We can live about 3 days without water and about 3 weeks without food. But let's go look at the 4 basic needs to start, okay? Water. As stated previously, the human body cannot survive much more than 3 days without potable water. This is a website I found, and I don't know about this one. It's called water.phila, phila.gov, so it's a government site. It indicates that people use on average 101 gallons of water a day. A full bathtub takes 36 gallons. A shower uses 20 gallons. Flushing the toilet uses 18 to 24 gallons. A washing machine uses 15 gallons per load. A dishwasher, 4 to 10 gallons. Hygiene, about 2.5 gallons, and drinking is another gallon. I think that was really highly inflated, okay? Especially per person. One person does not need to run the dishwasher and the washing machine each day, nor do they fill their tub with water and then later take a long shower. This was a government website though, but you do need to have drinkable water on hand and a few extra gallons to take care of basic hygiene and cleaning. So, how much water do you really need each day? And how many days do you want to have stored on hand for how many people? Even this number can vary some. If potable water is not available, waterproof purification tablets, life straws, Sawyer squeeze bottles, and other products can make water that's not safe to drink, well, safe. Consider the number of people you want to provide water for and what their needs will be. Take into consideration how much needs to be drinkable and how much will needs to be used for other things like hygiene. If you have animals, take into consideration their needs also. For water that does not need to be potable, sources can be nearby streams, ponds, swimming pools, etc. Extra baby wipes can fill in on some of your hygiene needs. This is just an overview of water's needs and honestly may not even apply to a depressed economic situation. It's just something for you to kind of think about. Shelter. If you're in a situation where you can stay in your home, do that. Being someplace you are familiar with makes everything easier to bear for yourself, for your family, especially children. If you are away from home, your car can also serve as a shelter. Otherwise, do your best to determine the best place to get out of the elements and be safe. Again, this may not apply as this focuses on temporary emergency situations and not long term economic collapse. Fire. Fire is a consideration needed for you to stay warm and to prepare food. If you have other ways of staying warm, this can replace the need for fire. Food. Food preparation is certainly a whole category in itself. How much food do you think you'll need for what length of time? And then that was where we go back into episode 50 to discuss that. If you're on the road and just want to be able to get back home, 3 days of food should be sufficient. Store ready-made, shelf stable food in your vehicle. Dehydrated meals sold in camping stores with some potable water will go a long way toward keeping your hunger at bay until you can reach home. If you need to have food at home, consider how much you will need. A good beginning point is a week's worth of food. This can get you through an ice storm or other situations where you're unable to get to a grocery store for a few days. You can always build up your stores over time. Remember the copy canning method I mentioned in episode 50. A deep pantry is very helpful to keep you and your family fed if comes a time when you can't get to the store. Try to store food that you know you and your family will eat. It may not be food that you would want to eat on a regular basis, but it'll do. If you feel the need to store staples like rice and beans, know how to cook them. Keep spices and other items stored to make them more palatable. And of course, the pallet of freeze dried 25-year shelf life food is a viable option in a depression situation. For those with the money and may not land and not land to garden and raise their own meat, this could work for you. But, but wait, there's more. Yes, these are the basics that we need for survival. But there's so much more into prepping than just these basic needs. As a prepper, you're trying to think of anything that you might need in any situation, and this can really encompass a lot. Are you set financially? Do you have cash set aside? Toolman 10 was traveling through his home country of Canada, and the internet went down all over. No ATMs, no credit card or debit card use. Keeping a couple $100 in cash available is more likely to get you home. In a financial collapse, like a depression, cash can help in some areas, but would take a lot more than many of us have access to. Remember, the Great Depression lasted 10 years. Are you saving silver and gold? Will you even need it? That's up to you to decide. How's your physical health? How many medications are you on? With lifestyle changes, how many of them can you eliminate from your life? Medications that you cannot do without, how will you obtain them when you run out? Do you can you save extra? Physically, can you walk a few miles? Can you do the work to keep your family warm, dry, and fed? If not, smart preppers work on their physical health to get them through tough situations. Do you have extra feminine hygiene products? Even if you do not need them for yourself, you may encounter someone who does. These could even used for barter if needed. And you know what? This reminds me of a story too. I remember because back when I was young, feminine hygiene products were a little bit different. These were things that had basically tail on both ends of the pad, and mom had a belt type thing that she tied it to, and my dad was practicing with his bow and arrow when he was young, and he had the razor tips on it, and he cut an artery. And so mom took that feminine hygiene product and literally tied it around his leg that kept him from bleeding out until she could get him to the hospital and get him stitched up. So feminine hygiene products can work for stuff like that. I mean, not they don't have those anymore. Thank God in heaven. Those were the worst things ever. But they also can be used to in emergency to staunch bleeding until you can get somebody to help, I guess. Oh, so that just I just remind that was remembering that one. Do you have other medical supplies? No one should feel like they will need to perform any surgery in a depression situation, but even if hospitals and clinics are available during the depression, can you pay for the services or even get there? Basic medical supplies could go a long way toward preventing a relatively minor injury into becoming a major problem, like preventing infection. A basic medical library could be priceless if needed on an injured or sick loved one. I'm sure there's plenty that I've not thought of, but that gives you a basic idea of things to consider as a beginning prepper. It's cost. Okay. Some people feel that being a prepper is very costly, and it can be expensive. Hence the palette of freeze dried food, but can also be done in a way that is not expensive and will save you considerable money in the long run. My friend Tuman Tim again in his workshop radio podcast mentioned that he had a listener chide him on the expense of becoming a prepper. Tim replied that he became a prepper because he was poor. Tim and his wife bought supplies while they had the money so they would have what they needed when the money was short. The copy canning method is not expensive and where I started on my journey. As I mentioned earlier, keeping a backup of toilet paper, shampoo, etc. is what got us into the next payday. And I'll be perfectly honest, I had kept my preps pretty good. I didn't have a whole room full of toilet paper, what they call the toilet paper wall, but I did have enough toilet paper when we had that crazy thing going on a couple years ago that I had always had enough toilet paper on hand. I didn't always have the brand I liked or wanted, but I could keep backup and we never ran out. On the other hand, preppers with the ability certainly can spend the money, There's always the new knife, the flashlight, the tactical gear, the weapons, ammunition, etc. Because my husband does not believe in prepping, we do not have extra ammunition for his shotguns and rifles. This could come back and bite us in the butt in the future, but I'll have to live with it. For a Great Depression scenario, I don't believe that you need to have a bug out location necessarily. If you live in the city, the ability to get to a rural location that you own or have access to could come in handy, but this would apply more to a societal collapse than economic. Bug out bags are a definite good idea. Keeping a backpack nearby with extra clothes, a toothbrush and toothpaste, shelf-stable food, and some water or water purification system can get you through some serious short-term scrapes. An example could be a family member who was critically hurt in an accident and you need to stay at the hospital with them for a few days. If your bag is already packed and in the car, there's no need to go home and try to pack what you need while stressing over that family member. This is a good prepping practice, and I highly recommend it. That maybe not necessarily what is considered a prepping practice that will get you through a long-term severe economic downturn. Although I personally do not feel that stockpiling food, ammunition, and medical supplies is enough to get you through an economic downturn, it is better than not preparing at all. If you are talking about enough to last you for a 10-year period or whatever it would be, that's a lot of. And where are you going to put it all? Please do not feel you have to do everything at once. Take time to consider your needs and take one step at a time to get you through where you are more comfortable with your ability to get you through to a tough situation. I got started on the survival podcast. Jack Spirko got started in 2008 in podcasting, wanting to warn people of the impending economic stress that he saw correctly coming. He covers a wide variety of subjects. His website, thesurvivalpodcast.com, has a directory of sorts so that you can look up which podcast you want to derive information from. This makes it much easier to narrow down your search. The Casual Preppers podcast is informative and fun. They make me laugh so much. They are so funny. They also cover a wide variety of topics with a bit of a focus on the tools and toys of prepping. I like listening to it because they're quite funny also, like I had said. Toolman Tim's Workshop is another podcast I enjoy. His story is partially part of a struggle to make ends meet while pursuing his dreams with his wife, prepping along the way. I'm often inspired by his podcast. As a handyman, he gives practical advice on generators, tools, food preparation, and other prepping subjects. I'm sure there are many other podcasts available, but I like these for a variety of reasons. But I never, ever come away from these podcasts feeling like it's the end of the world and really wish I had my bunker built. I've also included links to my Amazon store where you can buy ready-made food, books, and supplies and other items that will help you along your prepping journey. As I always say, I never want you to feel afraid they because they watch the news and feel like they're doomed. I only want to provide you with information to help you make your own decisions and take control of your own lives. Some people believe that they will take all their saved gear and run off into the woods, someplace like a state or federal land, and live off the land if things go south. This is probably not a viable option for many reasons that I will not get into in this episode. I am sure that I'm leaving out plenty of prepping practices that you could help you through the next Great Depression. But this is just to give you perspective so that you can determine if this route is a route that you want to take. The bottom line is that you will probably stay right where you are in a location your family and children are comfortable in and do the best you can with what you have. You may not have to become innovative. Oh, excuse me. You may have to become innovative over time in fixing a broken appliance, car, or other equipment. People who lived through the last Great Depression of the 30s threw very little away as they may need it in the future. An example of an innovation is a look at how the Cubans kept their country running when Castro pulled them into communism. Because this country is an island, economic sanctions against them made their citizens adopt very innovative ways to keep their lives prosperous and their vehicles running. You will find many cars from the 50s that have been maintained beautifully despite their inability to get parts for their cars. I understand that this episode of considering the option of prepping as a way to get through a possible economic depression took a short-term option to get you through immediate crisis, while being stranded away from home to longer-term considerations to get you through a much longer time frame. That was phrased poorly, but hopefully you understood it. There is a lot to consider here, and we just touched on a few things for basic information. As always, this information is never designed to frighten you. It is only information to help you get your mindset right to yourself and your family, to get yourself and your family through a few tough situations. Like Jack Sparrow said, helping you build a better life if times get tough, or even if they don't. All right, my next episode that I will be covering whenever will be the homesteading way as of getting through the depression situation. So my questions for you today are: what are your thoughts on the prepping aspect of getting through the Great Depression, and what would you do differently? Um, give me a message. Give me an email at theciaellis@gmail.com and give me some of your views on the prepping. Okay, as you know, the Self Reliance Festival is coming up on April 6th and 7th. I do have an affiliate link for that down below. Like the VIP is $450 with lots of extras. The early bird price is over, so I think it's $95 now. And so that you can get there. That is a cool thing. I love going to the Self Reliance Festival. That is a very good place to get information that you need for whatever tact you take for preparing for whatever's coming, and whether it's for homesteading, if it's for prepping, or if it's for, I don't know, there's so much. And I can't say enough how it's worth. I mean, it's obviously worth the $450, but the $95, that's pretty sweet too. I'm telling you, there's a lot going on. And you're going to meet some wonderful people, not just the speakers, but the people who attend. And it's a wide variety of people. I love it. So I would highly recommend. That is in Camden, Tennessee, April 6th and 7th. And I would recommend you do it. But follow my link down below so you can, it won't cost you anymore, but it would help me for sure. Okay, I hope this helps. I really do hope it helped. I wanted to help you guys. I want to give you stuff to think about. I don't ever want you to be afraid. And I pray that you give me a 5-star review so people can start finding me. Other places I can be found is grandmashomestead.farm. That is my website that I'm trying to figure out how to set it up where, instead of telling you to do theciaellis@gmail.com, I'm trying to do my email through it. But I'm still learning. I've got a lot to learn, guys. I won't lie. I have that Grandma's Homestead YouTube channel. I have Farm Animal Life YouTube channel. I do have a new one, Kinsey Lackey Sports, and I tell you about it, but it's basically this. That's my granddaughter's sports, and I video it and I put it on a separate YouTube channel. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook as some form of Thecia Ellis. I'm also and MeWe, Twitter, and Rumble. So that's all I got for you today. And you know me, I'm going to tell you to live until you die. This is a wonderful life we're living in, no matter how we feel about what's happening with our country, how we feel about what's happening on the other side of the aisle, or this side of the aisle, or the south of the border, or even the poor people in Canada. There's so much going on. Haiti. There's a lot going on right now, but we have our own lives. We have our own wonderful country that if we take the time and take care of it like we should, it will continue. But if it doesn't, we need to think about it and we need to prepare for it. God bless you guys. I'll see you next time.